Yeah, say a little something about our theme, because in a way it's partly encouraging us to this evening to just be very aware of all our experience. I talked in that meditation around sensations quite a bit. The physical aspect of the body, are the sensations we're experiencing. You could say vibrations. Did everyone experience sensations? Yeah? Okay, good, yeah. Because often we have an idea of the body, we have an idea of our experience, and then we have our actual experience. So just getting into what's going on, what actually is happening right now, already helps you become more present with what's actually going on rather than our mental constructions of what's happening. We're talking about Tantra this evening, and there's lots of popular. You've all heard the word Tantra? Anyone not ever heard the word Tantra? Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? It's one of these popular words. I resisted the temptation to Google it because I just didn't know what I was going to find. And then didn't want to get distracted and go down, various different avenues. So I thought I'm just not going to Google what it says. But it's got lots of popular popular representations or popular ideas around it. So let's say, do we relate to Tantra as being something maybe exotic? Yeah? Secret? Sexual? More people nod. Esoteric? Sort of mysterious? Something not that accessible? Anything else? Any other kind of ideas of what Tantra is? Have I said the main ones? Eastern, yeah.
I think of it as,
Sorry?
I think of it as Tibetan.
Tibetan, yeah. Mystical, yeah, that's a good one. Crazy, yeah. I thought of it as I think you could see it as the kind of action-packed fun bit of Buddhism. Buddhism on steroids. Definitely something mystical, something not very comprehensible, but attractive? How many of you are attracted by the idea of Tantra?
It seems sort of unattainable.
Unattainable. Yeah, I don't really understand it. but Kusala Sar's attracted to it. Just one person. A couple of people are attracted to it. Okay, good. I think it's actually one of the first books I ever read was on Tantra. And I didn't know anything about Buddhism. I think I'd read a few books, but, it was very, very new. But really, it spoke about energy. And I related to energy. And in a way, that's essentially what Buddhist Tantra is concerned with. Tantra itself, the word, is not necessarily Buddhist. It just means sort of something, you spread something woven together. So it's really like a series of texts or works that are woven together, weaving themes together and sharing that, transmitting that. So the word itself is not necessarily Buddhist, but Buddhist Tantra is a series of texts and sort of body of knowledge, if you like, that's shared, that's transmitted, and with practitioners. But it's really ultimately concerned with energy, how we use our energy, what we use our energy for, what's the process of liberating energy, and where does liberated energy, how does it express itself, where does it go? So before I say anything else, I'd like us to think about, look back on your day and think about a time in the day where you were, you actually felt a bit flat, you weren't that engaged, maybe you were a bit bored, a bit checked out. And what was happening in that experience? What was the context of that? What was your feeling in that moment? What kind of thoughts were you having? Yeah. So think about a point in your day where you weren't that engaged. I mean, it could have just been being on the tube. I've noticed that I can be very engaged waiting for I've been doing this practice where I am, when I'm waiting for the tube to come, I'm just not thinking about waiting. I'm just kind of enjoying the experience. Because I noticed I could get a little bit like, oh gosh, the train's 8 minutes away. That's long. I could have these ideas in my mind and just conjure up, oh, I'm going to be late, or how comes it's not coming immediately. I could have all these ideas, and I just decided to stop that. Just actually enjoy your experience. Just be with your experience. Don't think about how long it's going to take. There's nothing I can do to control that, is there? That was a thing. No matter how much I proliferated or thought about it, there was nothing I can do to change the timing of that tube. So just relax, enjoy this moment. So I actually now quite enjoy waiting for the tube. But then I found that when I get on the tube, I start going, oh, how long is this going to be? When I'm going to get to my destination. So that's my new practice, to just be on the tube. And because again, there's nothing I can do to change the time I get there. I don't actually have control at that moment. So how am I going to use this time that I have? And what energy do I want to have at the end of my journey? Because what I notice is the more I would think about getting to my destination, it would affect how I was when I got off the tube. So, think about a time when today when you're a bit flat or not very engaged, very connected. What was the context? What was the circumstances? How did you feel? What was the feeling tone? What were the thoughts that were going on in your mind? And how did your body feel in that as well? And then think about the opposite, a point in time at the day where actually you were you were very connected, very engaged. You might have been happy. You might have been curious. Life was a bit alive at that moment, yes? And again, what was the context? What was the emotion? What was the thought processes? How did your body feel? Okay? So let's just reflect on that for a minute, and then I'm going to ask you to get into pairs and just share that. Have you all got one, actually? Do we need to reflect on it for a little while? No, you got one? Yeah, I could see that. Everyone was like, I'm already there. Okay, let's get into pairs and share that with each other. Yeah. So, yes, anyone want to share one? Let's hear one or two, just so we get a sense of something where an energy felt flat, which just wasn't flowing. Yeah? Yeah.
Can I say when it was feeling off?
You were feeling off, yeah, okay.
So I was having more maybe hopes for a new job and opportunities, but then there were certain things that one after another was like, no, no. And my energy was just dropped down. And my body felt like, oh, why?
Right.
I'm doing my best today, why it feels that way?
Yeah.
But then I overcome it by telling myself, okay, that's just an experience.
Yes, okay, good. That's a really good one, isn't it? When you get some news that isn't, you're hoping for something to happen, in this case a job, and it's a no. And where did you feel that in the body? Do you remember where you felt it? Was it just an overall sense, or did you feel it in certain areas of the body?
It just hit, I felt like the emotion hit me in the heart. Just the emotions start pouring. Yeah. So yes. But it's just head and heart.
Head and heart. Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry about that. But you sounds like you were able to just be with the experience and you let the emotion come. Yeah. And then, but also at the same time, you also recognize, well, there's more opportunities. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Any others? Let's have one or two others. Yeah.
I actually got it just now, during meditation. Some emotional content came up during meditation, and I was like, I don't want to do all this right now.
Right.
So it's it just felt, my mind just went a bit flat.
Yeah. So do you notice? So that's like meditation. You're sitting there going, okay, great. I'm sitting to meditate. I'm enjoying. I've come to the Buddhist Center. I'm going to have a nice meditation, and then something comes up. You're like, no, not that. I don't want to deal with that experience, emotional content you described it as, and then it then had an effect. The not dealing with it also had an effect. Yeah. And everything went a bit flat.
It was also like, I should be dealing with it, but I also don't want to deal with it. How do I deal with it? But then when you try and deal with it, you don't deal with it.
Right, yeah, exactly. So a conflict. Actually, I know I should be doing something about this, but actually if I try and do something about this, it might not work. And then I'm going to be or I don't know what to do about it. It's there. I should do something. Don't know what to do, or it might not work.
There's also, I'm trying to do it, but then the trying actually makes it worse.
I'm trying to do it. That's interesting. So this is really fascinating in terms of working in meditation. It's very common what you've just described. It's a very normal experience to have, where something arises unexpectedly. Yeah, often. We're just kind of like ready to move forward, progress, and then something arises and says, no, you can't go forward because you've got to deal with this thing. And then we think, well, I don't know how to deal with it, or I don't really want to know how to deal with it, or if I start dealing with it, where's it going to lead me? But the key thing is that conflict then produced a feeling of being flat. So in a way you could say, or blocked in some way.
It's like it wanted to radiate outwards, but then I was like, nope. And I was like
squashing. Your whole I can just see this movement. So there was a squashing going on, and then that's a little block. So that's very common again in meditation, and really good, because I think we're going to be exploring that today, around what happens in meditation and then how to work with it. So that's a really good example. Thank you. Okay, yes.
I was at work a few days ago, and I only had 2 hours of sleep.
Oh.
And it was a very busy 12-hour shift, and by the end of the shift I was incredibly shattered, so I was really keen to go to bed. And one of my colleagues and also a long-time friend came up to me and said, "Can you talk?" And I was like, in my mind, I don't want to talk.
It's like, no.
And then he gave me and then he said, "It's really important because I'm struggling." And then just like that, this is for me, it was a sense of urgency that somebody who doesn't talk about things comes to me to talk about things. And I thought it was almost like a call for help in a way.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that just gave me so much energy.
Wow.
I think there was a sense of, I don't know, this was important.
Yeah.
To be present.
Yeah. Wow.
I couldn't just slack off.
Yeah. So we've moved from the kind of blocked or flat or off energy to actually feeling physically really tired. You've just done a 12-hour shift in a very challenging context. 12-hour shift, you're physically really tired, but somebody comes up to you and says, who doesn't normally talk about their experience, that was the key thing, right? Doesn't normally talk about their experience, and they say, hey, I really need to talk. Can I talk to you? So they've kind of already trusted you, yeah, and you feel entrusted by that. And your response was, right, I mean, you might have had a kind of, oh no, I'm really tired, which is completely understandable, but you felt something else in that situation. And actually what happened was it galvanized your energy. So suddenly you went from really physically tired, thinking about the lack of sleep, to going, no, I need to be present here. It feels like a crucial situation that I need to be present at, and here I am. And suddenly you had energy available to you. Yeah. Great example of how what we're talking about in Tantra and energy, working with energy, is not just physical energy. Physical energy only takes us so far. And what you're talking about there is a kind of an emotional awareness. And suddenly your emotions were engaged because, he was needing that attention. Yeah, great. Let's hear one more on the kind of engaged side of energy.
Yeah, I could share. So I went to do some yoga at lunchtime. I don't normally do that class. It's very unusual. I walked into the class and I was feeling a fairly flat day, and I recognised somebody I hadn't seen for quite a while. We greeted each other, and then we did the yoga, and then we went for a cup of tea afterwards, and we had a good conversation. And I've been looking at some accommodation options, and he just put this opportunity to me that was very unusual, and my first reaction was like, okay, that's interesting. And then I left him and got on my bike, and as I was cycling back to where I lived, I just felt a lot of energy rising to go. It was a bit of hope of like, this could be a really good solution to what he's proposed. So I felt that kind of, I mean, I was cycling, so I was feeling energy, but mentally I was feeling it turned my mood.
Yeah, great. So actually you started off again feeling flat, but you noticed someone you hadn't seen for a while.
It was a total
Coincidence that they were there because you're not normally at that class, and then you really made a connection. Sounds like you went out and made a connection, so that's already going to engage energy, isn't it? If you're kind of feeling a bit flat, but there's somebody that you can actually connect with and who wants to connect with you. And then you had a meaningful communication, by the sounds of it, where you was able to share what was going on for you, and he had a real response to that. He had a creative response to that, which gave you a sense of something could potentially open up for you.
I met him for the first time on a retreat.
And you met him
at the Drasna,
right?
5 or 6 years.
Wow,
ago, so.
yeah, great. So, how things can quickly turn and change, depending on how we meet our experience. So, we've all described meeting experience. You met the experience of the job disappointment. You met the experience of the unexpected meditation experience. You've met the experience of the person who really wanted to communicate something very important to you. And you met the experience of somebody that you've reconnected with, actually opening up a potential opportunity. How we meet the experience affects, what then happens next. Thank you very much for sharing that. We're going to keep unpacking this, but let's do some more meditation. Okay, so we've been exploring Tantra, introduction to Tantra, and particularly looking at energy. And Tantra concerns itself with how we use our energy and helping us to transform our energies so that we can express them in a kind of liberated way, that we can actually cultivate our energies so that we become an expression of wisdom, compassion and love. So we did a little exercise earlier on where we looked at an experience we have that's where our energy is flat, and looked at the conditions and circumstances of that. And then we looked at an experience we have where our energies are engaged and are flowing, and we looked at the conditions and contexts of that. And it was kind of interesting, seeing that it's a very, when you talk about energy, it's a very tangible thing. You didn't have to think too long and hard when I asked you that question. Immediately experiences came to mind. So, yes, so we are definitely talking about more than physical energy. I was thinking about sometimes when you have a lot of physical energy, but it's definitely not flowing towards the good. It's definitely not flowing in a beneficial way. There's a word in Buddhism that's virya. Virya is the energy we're speaking about in Tantra. We're talking about energy that's in pursuit of the good, energy that's in pursuit of the beneficial, that's cultivating what is helps you reduce suffering, alleviate suffering, it's energy that helps you cultivate positive mental states. That's the energy we're talking about, much more than just physical energy. So you can have a lot of physical energy and still be in a very negative mental state, right? It's a very easy thing to do. And you'd also, have you ever had an experience where you've kind of you're kind of in a negative mental state, but you have a lot of physical energy, so you then do something with it, like, I don't know, go for a run or something like that. You think, right, okay, I'm in a bad mood, I'm not feeling great, let me go for a run. And sometimes that's just a way for us to really experience our energy more fully, and for it to find a way to express itself in a more beneficial way, yeah? Or hoovering, or cleaning. I don't know, we've probably all got our thing of choice that we do when we're feeling energetically stuck. And sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it does help move our energies and we find ourselves in a sort of better mental state. But sometimes it doesn't. So, you can, be on the treadmill for ages, and there is something that physical that happens, because there's a chemical, isn't there, in the brain that can fire off when we physically engage, but actually it doesn't necessarily last that long, depending on what the emotion is. So it's more than physical energy. We're talking about virya in pursuit of the good, this energy that helps us cultivate positive mental states, that helps us free ourselves from what causes our suffering. That's really the energy that the Tantra is concerned with. So, and it's also concerned with, using all of our experience, because energy is something that drives us. When we get out of bed, we have to have energy just to get out of bed. We have to have energy just to start our day. We have to have energy in every aspect of our experience. So if you think about it then, if we're conscious of how our energy is, that gives us an immediate way into our practice, our experience, rather than thinking of practice as, oh, well, I'm trying to be good, or I'm trying to, be positive to others. We can think of practice as, what's our energy flow? Is it beneficial? Is it stuck? Is it in flow? Is it balanced? That's another way of engaging in practice. So, I was thinking about this, that, coming into the world, coming into life, I've been thinking about birth and death a lot of late, and thinking actually what enables us to experience what's having a body. We come into the world. Anyone remember being very young, sort of just coming into consciousness? What's your earliest memory? 2, 3, anyone back then? Yeah, 2, 3, something like that. Yeah, okay. Mine's I have 2. I have one memory about 3 years old, and I have another then, but most of them start about 5 or 6 years old. So most of us don't remember coming into the world. Most of us don't remember when our bodies literally emerged in the world. Most of us don't remember when our senses and consciousness came into effect, as it were. Most of us don't remember that. We just sort of arrive somehow or other, and then one day, as in my experience, look around and go, oh, here I am. And what is this world that I'm in? But we do remember, we do have an experience of just having the body again and again and again. We have that experience of having a body. We have an experience of the senses. We have an experience of something we call mind, something we call consciousness. But we experience everything through the body. We experience, our senses are in the body, our consciousness is in the body. Everything is mediated through the body. Our energy is experienced usually through the body, yes? So Tantra says, use that for practice. Use our very experience of the body, use our very experience of energy for practice. That is an immediate way we can engage. That's what Tantra says. And then it says, set your sights to where do you want to get to? Where is your orientation? Where are you heading for? Where are you heading in life? So I've been thinking quite a lot about birth and death, because I was thinking of, I've had a child. So, I remember when I was pregnant, suddenly I was myself. I had my body that I was very, very familiar with, very, very used to. And suddenly it changed quite significantly and gradually changed more and more. So at first, there's pregnancy. Okay, there's a life now coming into being. And then you get to experience the life as it's sort of growing. And then at some point, it sort of propels out. There is this life right in front of you. And it's quite a fascinating process. And it's also, at that point, I was very aware of being at the sort of, if you like, at the edges of birth and death, even at that point. because anything could have happened. You know, anything could have happened for him, for me, for my son who was born, whereby it didn't sort of work, yes? Where he wasn't able, one of us could have, like we were dependent on taking a breath. He was dependent on receiving his first breath. He was dependent, and, you know, is he, because there's always a point where they're not quite, you know, they haven't come to yet. And then there's that kind of moment, and sometimes they slap the baby to get it awake, and then it screams. That very first scream is life coming in, breath coming in, senses are awake, senses are alive. That's the body, and it was very interesting, like, you know, sort of producing a body, as it were, and then sort of at some point I remember sitting him on my lap, and then just looking, and the fact that he was looking at me as well. I was looking at him, he was looking at me, and was like, oh, we're here now. I'm now going to experience life very much through his being, and he's going to experience life very much through my being. It was a very strong experience of being one body, and then almost, well, he wasn't me. He definitely had a separateness, but there was a very strong connection there. So that's the beginnings of our coming into the world. We've all had that experience, actually. We've all had that experience in this room online of being born, and all had the experience of coming into a physical existence and coming into a sense of consciousness, where we begin to experience the world through sight, through sound. We've all had that experience, but we don't remember it. So what happens is at some point we wake up to, and this is definitely my experience at age 3, wake up to, oh, here I am. And then later on, oh, here I am again. And then there was more of a continuity after that, where I just was like, okay, there's a body. This is the shape I am. This is the life that I've been born into. These are the people around me. These are the kind of interactions I'm having. This is life. Does that all sound? You all relate to that, right? You all had something like that. Often though, and then there's death at the end. Then there's death. So there's the being born, and then there's death at the end. And I've, been with people who are near to the end of their life, including my mum, who died this year. And that's also like this fascinating process, because, you know, she had this kind of long, she had dementia, so she was kind of, not very active. Her senses weren't very engaged, in a sense. I couldn't really speak very much to her. I could sing to her, she could sing back, but speech had gone, sort of continuous speech had gone. She was aware of me, so there was awareness there, so consciousness was there, but not fully as the way it had been. And yet she was very much still there. And then at a certain point I could feel that, in a way, her energy was sort of ebbing away. Her sort of life, her spirit, if you like, was sort of ebbing away. And then it was no longer. Her spirit, her body was there, her spirit was no longer. And yet, so then I was then looking at her body, as it were, and it was a very beautiful experience, strangely, looking at her body and thinking, gosh, where has she gone? Where has consciousness gone? And her senses obviously were no longer engaged. Her body was there. So she was not her body. We're not our bodies, as it were. There's so much more to us than just our physical bodies. And yet we experience our lives through our bodies. Yeah. So there's this birth, coming into the world, coming into consciousness, using our senses, and then there's death at some point, the magic of birth, the mystery of death. We don't know where you go to. There's lots of theories, but we don't really, know. I can't fully tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. But you have this experience of death where the body is no longer active. spirit goes wherever it goes. Consciousness goes wherever it goes. Do you remember our previous lives? Anyone here? No? So Buddhism says we have previous lives, but we don't remember it. So again, what I find fascinating is that it's almost as if we're in this great fog of forgetfulness, where we don't remember our birth, coming into the world. We don't know if we've been here before, and we don't know anything about our previous, if we have any previous life, we don't know our previous lives. We don't know necessarily our previous deaths and how they occurred. And then we have this experience in the middle of those two things, which is our experience that we're having right now, which is what we call life, where we sort of emerge on this canvas, if you like, this theatre of life, and then we have to choose, if you like, how we act, how we live this life. So much of it is conditioned. So much of it is our parents saying, do this, don't do that, be careful of this, this is the direction we think you should go in, or our school, or our religion, or our culture, or whatever we've seen on social media. So much of it is conditioned, if you like, of how we live, but we've come into the world with something. We've come into the world not a blank canvas. We've come into the world with a consciousness, and we'll leave the world with whatever we've managed to come into in terms of awareness. So why am I saying all of that? I'm saying all of that because this bit in the middle between birth and death is all that we have. This bit in the middle is how we relate to our everyday experience, is what our life is. And how can we, therefore, make the best use of this life? And how can we make the best use of the body that we have? It's this very body. We're not our bodies. We're so much more than our bodies. As birth and death tells you, we're so much more than our bodies. And yet we experience everything through our bodies. Consciousness and senses come in through our bodies. And so we need our bodies. We need our bodies. It's the vehicle. It's the vehicle for awareness. It's a vehicle for consciousness. We absolutely need our bodies. And what Tantra says is that so much of awakening will come through our experience of our bodies and how we engage with energy. So Tantra says it's not so much about all the things you do. It's not, yes, have a great job and do all the various activities. Tantra says all of it is mediated through your awareness of body and your awareness of energy. And that's the key thing. So, there's a really important poem that I really like that really sums all of that up. It very much says, this body is precious. This body is your vehicle for awakening. This is where all your experience is really going to happen. You're going to mediate all your life experience right here, right now, through this body. Make the best use of it, and set your sights to where you want to go. Because there's so much that will tell you to go wherever. There's so much conditioning around. Set your sights to where you want to go. And then what Tantra says is make use of every experience you have to go in that direction. So this is Songpa, 14th century Buddhist monk. And he says, the human body at peace with itself is more precious than the rarest gem. Cherish your body. It is yours this time only. The human form is one with difficulty. It is easy to lose. All worldly things are brief, like lightning in the sky. This life, you must know, as a tiny splash of a raindrop, a thing of beauty that disappears even as it comes into being. Therefore, set your goal. Make use of every day and night to achieve it. So Tantra only works when you've set your goal, as it were. You kind of decide you want to orientate your life in the direction of liberated energy. You want to orientate your life in the direction of wisdom, compassion, and love. That's a starting point, if you like, setting a goal. You don't even have to worry about whether you're going to get there or not, as it were, whether it's going to be fully realised. You just sort of say, this is the direction I want to go in. That setting your orientation has a huge effect on, therefore, how you live, each day. So he says very clearly, set your goal, set your orientation. And there's a really lovely, I like this poem, this line in a poem from Raya that says, if you want to go, if you point your cart north, when you want to go south, how will you arrive? So this is an opportunity, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on in your life right now. It's saying, set your sight, set your orientation in the direction you actually want to go in. Not necessarily ones that you're conditioned to go in, but one that actually you feel is going to be most beneficial for you and others. And then, because if you don't set your sights in that direction, you'll go somewhere else. Yeah. When I used to work with young people at risk of offending, and we used to say to them, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Yeah. And it's a similar thing. If you don't set your sights in one direction, there's all other directions that are pulling you, trying to capture your attention. So set your sights. And then it's like, well, how do I then use my everyday? How do I use my everyday? How do I use my body? How's my body going to help me? How's my basic energy? How's my going to help me cultivate this quality of virya? This quality where my energy is in pursuit of what's beneficial, what's helpful, what's going to free me from suffering. How do I do that? So, first question is then for you is, if you've set your goal, if you've got a sense of the direction you'd like to go in, imagine then something in your life now that would, if your energy was freer, if there was more liberated energy, if you had more virya, if you had more energy in that direction, what would that area of your life look like? So it might be, for example, work, it might be home life, it might be friendships. Think of an area of your life where at the moment your energy feels a bit stuck or a bit flat, or you're not quite clear where it's going. And then just imagine for yourself, okay, imagine that energy is freer, it's more liberated, it's flowing in that area of my life, and it's moving me towards the direction I want to go in. And I can feel confident that it's happening. So let's just do that for like a minute or so, just in ourselves. I'll lead us through it. So bringing to mind an aspect of your experience. Could be communication, an activity, a habit, something in your experience. Which you know is not moving in the direction of your aspiration. The energy might be blocked, distracted. There might not be a lot of motivation, and yet the desire, the aspiration is there. And you can fast forward. It's a few months' time. And you're now recognizing that this area of your life, energy is flowing more freely. There's more positive mental states. It feels more beneficial, more creative. It's moved from reactive to creative. It's moved from connected, it moved from separate to connected. Focused from distracted. Just really getting a sense of that and seeing how it feels. What's possible now as the energy is moving more freely. What difference does it make in your life and with those around you? What emotions are there? As energy is flowing more freely. Virya. And staying with that experience, and then you're ready, open your eyes. And just get into threes and just share what that experience is and what came to mind. Great, thank you. So let's hear a couple of examples of what you imagined for yourselves. Yeah.
I was thinking a lot about like my living situation
Mm-hmm.
and Buddhism journey, and then I feel like my job identifies me as a person, and it was the first time ever in my life, literally just now through this exercise, that I thought, oh, what, like, would I be happy if I just like quit my job?
Oh wow.
Literally, never ever thought about it. So that was quite freeing.
Yeah. So what was the you were moving towards something, so it's not necessarily the externals, is it? There's something you wanted to experience differently. What was that?
Having more free time.
Okay. Having more free time.
Less of an emotional burden.
Okay, so that's it, isn't it? Yeah. So on some level, You're aware that there's feeling of being weighed down, yeah, by the job currently. And so you imagine yourself being in another job or being in a situation where work isn't weighing you down. And how did that feel? What was the emotion that went with that?
Yeah, I just felt a lot of energy coming out.
Right.
Feeling very happy.
Yeah. Great. So, wow.
But then I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So in a way, we have a very fixed sense of ourselves. This is who I am. This is how I live. This is what my life's like. And sometimes it's that sense of a fixed sense of ourselves that stops us from seeing what's possible. And we even sometimes nervous about dreaming, about imagining, because if we imagine something, if we set our sights in a certain direction, then in a way, there's that risk, isn't there, that we might actually go in that direction, because we see it's possible. So you even allowing yourself to entertain that possibility, that is sowing some seeds, and we'll see what happens from here. Thank you. Any others? Yeah. Okay, back of it first, yeah.
I would say my example was because I practice piano like amateur, and I'm kind of 3 months into a quite difficult piece, and then and I feel a little bit, it's not stuck, but I just feel like every time I pick up a new page is a bit of a grind, and I have to do put hours and hours in it. But then when you were saying, try to fast forward a couple of months forward, and I do can imagine I can play it quite well, and at a level that I quite like it. and when you also just say bring some rhythm to it, and I just feel maybe that's what I kind of need to bring that into my note. I just need to go through what I normally go through, but then 3 months later I'll be at the level I'm happy with. That does help a little.
Do you want to learn to play it really well? This is a piano piece. You want to play it well. Do you want to?
Yes.
Could you imagine? Could you hear that in 3 months' time? You hearing it and feeling happy being accomplished with that piece?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a motivation, isn't it? That's the orientation. Just saying, actually, I do want this, because you don't have to. You can be like, actually, piano's not quite for me, or I've got as far as I want to get. So it's a choice that you're making. And then it's like you set that sort of sight, as it were, that orientation, and then it actually can help support you to keep going. But there's also something about what happens when you're actually playing and it's difficult. What's the mental state? Because that's when our energies can get flat or despondent, or think, oh, I'm never going to do this. So there's some mental constructs that are probably going along with that. So that's where the practice is then. Yeah, going, what's my body? What's happening to my body right now when I'm sitting when I'm coming against a tricky piece, and what's going on in my mind, and where's the block? Yeah, so the Tantra will be very much where's the energetic block here, and what can I do to help free that block? Yeah. And then actually the difficulty is no longer such a difficulty. It could become something quite interesting, something you're kind of like curious about, how to navigate these notes. Yeah. I used to work with young musicians, actually. So it was very much around that, like the mindset of how to approach something that seems really difficult and not get sort of stuck in it.
It's almost as if you have to try to solve the problem instead of thinking of it as a chore.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. So that's a thought. Am I just thinking of this as a chore? I've just got to get through this difficult thing and then it'll be all wonderful. Or can I think of it as, oh, this is the nature of playing. I'm going to come across pieces and notes that are a bit challenging. How can I bring a sense of adventure and curiosity to that? And it shifts the energy. Great. One more. Did you have?
Oh no, I was just going to say I'll trade lives with the girl at the back because I'd love her job.
Oh, I see.
I don't care what it is, it's a job.
Oh.
I just can't take one at the moment because of a chaotic life.
Okay.
That's the freedom and the independence with a job is something I really crave and
Yeah.
can't have it.
Right. Well, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because there were times in our lives as well when life isn't just going the way we want it to go, and we can feel generally stuck. So again, what's the attitude or the mindset we bring to that? Because obviously we can. This is a whole thing. Is like, are we bringing a mindset that's repetitive, habitual? You know, we have to kind of have compassion for ourselves, empathy for ourselves when things are difficult. At the same time, what's a creative response? What's the most creative response I can bring to this situation that is objectively difficult? Yeah. Great. Okay. So working with energy, Bhante Sangharakshita says working with energy is very progressive. We firstly just have to become aware of what the quality of our energy is. So is it turgid? Is it stuck? Is it blocked? And we try not to bring any particular judgments to that. So this is what I like about this way of practicing. We're not bringing a judgment. We're going, oh, this is just how it is. And then how do you want it to be? So then it's like, okay, what do I have to do to move it from blocked to open, to move it from repetitive to more creative, to more responsive? So mindfulness is really important here, because what we're doing, we're having an experience and then we're bringing our objective awareness to that. So we're looking at our experience, and rather than judging it or just avoiding it, we'll be kind of becoming curious about our energetic experience and then going, okay, what's actually happening and what do I desire to happen? What's actually more in line with my aspiration, my overall orientation? And so this is you can do this off the cushion. You can just go about your everyday life. Tantra brings in your everyday life. So literally from leaving the house to going to bed, there's something you can bring that awareness to. Because we're acting all the time. We're having experience all the time. So everything is up for that examination. It's not about, well, there's the rest of my life and there's my meditation, or this is my Buddhist practice over here, and then my life is happening over there. It's kind of, your life is your Buddhist practice. Your life is where you're experiencing, is where you're having experience. So you're bringing awareness to that experience. And you're looking at, where does your energy get lost? Where does that virya, if you like, not energy, but where does your virya get lost? And he says, is it in craving? Is it in worry? Is it in watching TV? Is it in just reading randomly like we do on social media? Is it in gossiping? Where is our energy getting lost? And where is it being found? Just that exercise we did earlier. Where is it being found? Is it friendship? Is it the arts? Is it practice? Is it reflection? Is it work? So many ways where our energy is engaged and found. And then where can we cultivate more virya? What gives us the opportunity to cultivate more virya? And then, of course, once we have that more awareness, we then can work directly in it in meditation. So we talked about meditation earlier. We talked about what goes on in a meditation. We start often with the body, just with a body scan, just because we're often disconnected from our body. And we often have two ways of experiencing our bodies, actually. We're either very disconnected from it, not aware really of what's going on in our bodies, or we're very obsessed with our bodies. So we're kind of like, constantly preening ourselves and trying to, imagine wanting the best body and working out all of those things. We're just very preoccupied with our bodies. So we can, go from one extreme to the other, basically. Disconnected. It's just this thing that moves around with us. We're really here, and the rest of us is just being called along, as it were, this body. Or we're very into the body and very preoccupied with it, and either worrying about it or feeling, like having our ego boosted because we got an idea that we've got this amazing body, or we want an amazing body. So it's like we're fluctuating all the time from ignoring our body to obsessing or being preoccupied with it. So again, in a way, it's kind of actually seeing our body. Tantra says, no, see your body as this vehicle of awakening where you're learning about your experience of life through the body. So you've all heard of chakras, haven't you? You all heard chakras? These are basically energy centers. And it's not, again, not specifically a Buddhist thing, although Buddhism does have, Tibetan Buddhism particularly, has talks about different chakras. You have these energy centers in the body. And it starts with the head. So you have the crown. You have, which are the crown energy. So it's just everything that goes on in your head. But it's also connected to very subtle spiritual energies, they say. This is what Tantra says. It's connected to very subtle spiritual energies. So if you've been inspired, if you've suddenly just thought, oh, I've got this amazing idea, that's probably your crown energy center that it's kind of happened. Something's going on here. On retreat as well, when you're hearing a teaching, it's all happening. It's sort of you sort of experiences are coming in, and it's around here. And then you have the energy center of your third eye, this point here. And that is supposed to be your intuition. So, again, it's like a lot of our intuition. What is intuition? It's like a direct knowing of reality without having to be mediated. So a direct knowing of things. You sometimes just know something to be true and you don't even know why you know it. So this is your kind of third eye here. And then your middle of your forehead. And then you have your throat, which is communication and speech. Your heart area, which of course is your emotional center. Who said it earlier? With when you found you didn't get the job, it was your heart, your head, and your heart. So you were thinking, oh no, what am I going to do now? What's the next step? But your heart was going, no, I was wanting that. Yeah. So our heart, in fact, was one of a very famous sage, Ramana Maharshi, said that actually it's usually, in fact, Bhante says it as well. He says it's the heart center is the middle, is right here. And it's in between. So the middle, the center of all our energy centers is the heart, because it's in between the head, if you like, the upper body and the lower body. It's a kind of mediates lower and upper, or higher and lower. And this Ramana Maharshi said, he said that the I conscious, your sense of self, was located not in the head. We sometimes think of us as being here, but he was saying it's not actually in the head. It's not even in the physical heart, which is in the left side of the body, but it's a spot right in the middle of the chest. That's this sage, this famous Indian sage, said that. And said, when someone said, well, why do you think that? Why is it there? He said, well, imagine somebody calls out to you, hey, you there. How do you respond? Where do you point? You don't point there or here. You point here, which I found fascinating. So this is me. Your sense of yourself is here. And because this is where our feelings are. This is where we're mediating our experience of life. So we have, throughout the day, all these ups and downs. We have, I like this, I don't like that. This is good for me, that's bad for me. Yeah, I'm attracted to this, I don't, I'm pushing that away. That Vedana, we talk about that as Vedana, that basic experience, or even I don't know how to feel. I'm in between like and dislike. That Vedana is often experienced right here. Sometimes lower down as well, but here is often mediates. So we can, and then, so that's where did I get to? Heart. And then, of course, you have your solar plexus, the area here. Then you have your sacral, which is just below the navel. And then you have your root chakra, and you have two aspects of the root, like that feet as root, but sort of the area of your perineum as well is the root. And they all have different emotional qualities to them. And it's something that you can discover. I mean, it's written down, you can read about it, but it's something that in meditation you can explore. So, for example, if you have an experience that floats into your consciousness, the emotional content that you were talking about earlier, where are you feeling it in the body? Which aspect, which part of the body is that expressing itself? Because sometimes it's like, oh, it's the throat. I didn't say that thing that I feel I should have said. And I'm now feeling like, when I'm sitting to meditate, I've got this kind of block here. Yeah. or even the pain or sensations here. It might be that there's a kind of you're in some kind of difficult discussion going on, and you're trying to think of what you should have said about something, but you might be experiencing it in your head because you've got different ideas and views going on. So that might be very much in the head. So when you sit to meditate and you experience a block, when you experience I don't know what's going on here, I'm just not getting further, tune into the body and think, okay, what energy center is active right now? Which energy center is blocked right now? Where am I feeling sensations, strong sensations? Where am I not feeling much at all? Where am I disconnected from? All of that is information. And as Buddhists, we're using that not just to heal. Well, healing is very important. There's a whole body of work these days called somatic work, which is very much around looking at the body and trying to help with trauma and things like that. As Buddhists, we're looking for healing, but we're also looking for awareness. We're looking for liberating that energy. Because if energy is unbalanced, if it's stuck, if there's areas of our body that we're just not aware of, not conscious about, that's going to be energy that's not flowing freely. So the idea is in the Tantra that all your energies are aligned, all your energy flows ultimately, and it flows in the direction that you've set, which is cultivating virya, cultivating positive emotion. And it's really about also freeing ourselves from the idea that our bodies are just these fixed blocks, if you like, that we walk around with. Our body is just energy. The whole body's an energy. It feels very dense because that's just how we view things. But the more you experience energy in meditation, the more you sort of connect with these various different energy centers and what's going on in the body. Sometimes in meditation, they call it the subtle body. The more you connect with that, the more you realize, it's just energy. Like when we talk about sensations, when we talk about, I'm feeling really blocked. Well, explore it. What's going on there? What's arising, and if you actually engage with that area of your body, what's actually emerges? Does it move? Does those sensations move? Do they have a shape? Do they even have a color? Suddenly, it's no longer this just block. It's something that actually gives you information about your experience. So, and then, then it's kind of like, actually, we're not just, we begin to realize through that there's so much, we're not fixed. Our bodies are not fixed. Our energy centers are not fixed. Everything can be in flux. Everything can shift. Everything can change. If you free an aspect of an area of the body that's blocked, that's going to free some mental and emotional energy. It's going to give you energy to direct where you want it to go, which is cultivating more and more positive mental states. Bhante says, the main point is that you should not think of your body or your body of any level as something absolutely discrete, as though there's an edge to your physical body. So I'm talking about your inner body, as it were, but this also goes to the whole body. And it's really underscoring the fact of our body is really just energy. So he says not to think of it as something absolutely discrete, as though there's an edge to your physical body, beyond which there is non-body. He says, this is quite an interesting thought. If you could see yourself through a sufficiently powerful microscope, you wouldn't be able to see where your body ended. It would just fade into a cloud of minute particles. The sharp edge you see with the naked eye simply isn't there. There is just a finer and finer aura extending out into space. And the situation is similar on other levels. So that sounds like, really? Wow. But at the same time, the more you engage with your body as energy, in meditation, it's what meditation gives you opportunity to do. To go, I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling upset. I'm feeling flat. Then you start engaging with, where does that show up in the physical body? Then you start asking some interesting questions. Then you start exploring the sensations, and then it begins to move. And then you begin to experience, well, I'm not blocked. I'm not necessarily flat. There's so much more here. And then there's a freedom of energy. And what he's talking about there is that if you can do it even now, where does your body end, as it were? We can think our body ends here, but if I came up to any of you and came very close to you and sort of really very close to you, you'd be like out of my space, wouldn't you? Yeah, you'd be like, oh. So where does our actual physical body end? Because we have, our body communicates beyond our body, as it were, beyond our physical bones and matter. Why are we saying all this? It's because the Tantra says we need to use all of our experience. That it's not about, okay, coming to a class necessarily, and we do that to begin with. We're building up experience, but at some point we're like, actually, I can do this off the cushion. I can practice this on my way home. I can practice it on my bike, on the tube. I can practice this before I go to sleep. That's a really interesting time to practice. Like, where's my energy now? I can practice it when I wake up. Where's my energy? What's going on in my consciousness? And where's it expressing itself in my body? And the more you do that, the more subtle your awareness is, the more sensitive you are to your awareness, the more we're learning about our experience. And the more we're learning about others, because we're also engaging with others. The more sensitive we are with others, because we're then going, okay, actually, I just communicated in a certain way. I could see that person react or move back. Okay, maybe there's something in my communication that was not beneficial. So you become interested in the effect you have with others, because you can begin to see others as not fixed as well. You begin to see others as these sensing beings that are having a very subtle experience. And, we have the whole of our lives to do that. In a way, life is this great canvas. So Tantra also says that, make the most of this opportunity. Make the most of this opportunity you have every day, that you're conscious, that you're alive, that you're breathing, that you're sensing, to understand more about life. We're so much more than we think we are. We're not just our physical bodies. Even our physical bodies are fascinating, giving us so much sense of experience. Use every day and all your interactions and all your activities to understand more about how, what life is. Understand more how to use your energy in a way that's beneficial for you and others. And how to create context as well, which is what we try and do at the Buddhist Center. We're creating a context whereby people can come here, set their aspiration, set their orientation to what's truly good, to what's truly real and true, and then create conditions to bring that into reality. So keep imagining what's possible, but also for you, but also stay with what's present, because that's where so much learning and treasure is. This very body is a vehicle for awakening. And next week I'll be talking about what we can do in ritual and in symbol to help us move towards our aspirations more fully. Thank you.